Rita, distinguished guests, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I believe I know Bankie longer than anybody in this room. And for many years, many years, we worked very closely together. So it's a deep shock, trauma, which continues unabated as I think of his passing occurs to me ever so often. Walking to one place or the other and so on. As age, with the inexorable toll of the years, creeps in on us, we find that our friends, relatives, and acquaintances begin to increasingly pass on around us. No person is exempt from this process, which is defined by reality, the reality of birth itself. The dialectics of nature decree that as soon as we are born, we are somewhere in the unfathomable future, listed for a certain rendezvous with death. This is the fate of all flesh, the passing out parade of life's endless mystic procession. As we get older, the order and the speed with which the passing of friends and colleagues, siblings and relatives occur is hastened. Towards and beyond 70 years and 10, the pace picks up definite speed. Knowledge of the order of the queue is nobody's privilege, and death, like a thief in the night, invariably strikes without warning, but with uncanny precision. I have for a long time believed that because of added age, I should precede Bankie in death, and that the task of performing final obsequies will devolve on him, not me. On that account, I had willed him as an executor of my estate. But the cruel and capricious hand of fate has decided otherwise, and I find myself here saddled with the painful task of executing an unenviable duty, a duty which I accept as a mandatory obligation. Our paths first crossed at the funeral of the Venerable Dr. Nanka Bruce in Accra in the beginning of the 70s, in the early 70s. Introduced by our mutual friend, Samite Jr. I was then teaching at the University of Cape Coast. My connection with Bankie was primarily on account of the fact that we shared a common commitment to the ideals of Pan-Africanism. We saw the Pan-Africanist ideal as the ultimate formula for the emancipation and the social development of Africans. Bankie very regularly visited me in Cape Coast with his then wife, Sherry Minette. He never tired of bread and fried fish, which he bought at Kotokraba Market, Cape Coast. He consumed this fare with remarkable relish. Very often, they would stay at the guest house in Fort Santiago, overlooking Elmina Castle. In those years, the mid-70s, he nursed a strong disposition towards cultural issues and manifestations. I got to know Fela Kuti through Bankie. I recall visiting Fela Kuti's shrine with Bankie in Lagos. After about 3 years, he moved from private practice into the administration of justice within the Superior Court of Judicature as Registrar, Court of Appeal of Ghana, with the rank of a circuit judge. In 1978, he joined the diplomatic service of Gambia, his father's country of birth, as first secretary and counsel at the Gambia High Commission, Lagos, Nigeria. He went with Sherry to Lagos. I remember visiting them briefly in Lagos on one occasion when I had come to Nigeria from Botswana for a conference. They lived in a well-appointed but relatively incommodious maisonette in the smart end of Ikoyi. He spent only 2 years in the Gambian diplomatic service. After he left the service of the Gambian government, he went back to the UK for a while. Bankie was a sedulous letter writer, who conscientiously reported on matters of shared interest. People don't know this. And I've heard people complain that Bankie writes only 2 words, noted. But it's not correct. He was a prolific letter writer when he wanted to write lengthy things. He would easily. I discussed his availability with the then Chief Justice of Botswana, Robert Hayfron Benjamin, who gladly decided to offer him a position in his office in Botswana. I got in touch with Bankie and visited him in the UK during my attendance of a symposium in London. He welcomed the chance to get back to Africa and took up the offer to work under the Chief Justice as Assistant Registrar and Master of the High Court of Botswana. He served in this capacity from 1980 to 1982. There he had his first child, Kwesi Kwaah Foster, whose mother, Mpo Tlalele, died in 2004, was from Lobati. Kwesi grew up with Bankie's parents. Bankie had arrived in Southern Africa 4 years after the historic Soweto uprising. The torrent of youthful humanity flowing out of South Africa into Botswana as hapless refugees had long ebbed and been reduced to a trickle. Many had in the immediate ensuing years left for more northerly destinations, but many others had remained, determined to eventually battle their way back into the Republic of South Africa. Foster was their sworn and ultimate enemy. In his social circulation, Bankie was Bankie found the raised eyebrows at the mention of his name, Foster, and the confusion with the apartheid supremacist name, Forster, Exxon. He didn't say much about it. He mentioned it once or twice to me. But he took a decision. He decided to make an alteration to his appellation by tagging on a repeat of his first name to the rear. Of course, this did not go down well with his parents. But those who knew Bankie would remember how strong-willed and steadfast he was. After the PNP, the People's National Party government, was overthrown by Jerry Rawlings, 31st December 1981, and the Provisional National Defense Council came into power in Ghana. I remember Bankie wrote to me, and I have the letter still, that he would try his hand with the new government. He went to Accra and was assigned to various tasks for the PNDC government between 82 and 84. After that, he was appointed chargé d'affaires in the Ghana embassy in Luanda, Angola. He served in the Ghanaian Foreign Service for 2 years and left in 86. From 86 to 88, he worked on different schemes in Accra and later in London before becoming an executive officer of the external program of the University of London between 1990 and 91. I was at this stage here in Windhoek, working with Dr. Peter Kwesi, first in the Namibian Economic Policy Research Unit, NEPRU, and then later, after Dr. Kwesi was appointed Vice Chancellor Designate for the new University of Namibia. Our mandate was to transform the whole Namibian Academy into a university. The minister then was the Honorable Nahasangula. And I remember his office down the road there. Dr. Kwesi urgently needed a personal assistant. I recommended Bankie for the position. Very gladly, with his usual kindness, large-heartedness, and generosity, Dr. Peter Kwesi agreed to take him on. I left in the beginning of 1992 for the University of the Western Cape. And Mr. Bankie served as PA to the Vice Chancellor from 91 to 95. From 92 to 94, April, Bankie functioned as a member of the International Preparatory Committee of the 7th Pan-African Congress, which was held in April 94 in Kampala. In 94, he tried his hand at teaching a course in African political thought in the university here, and worked between 95 and 96 in staff development program for the University of Namibia, where he was also a researcher in human rights. This was when Bankie became a member of the Board of Trustees of the Center for Advanced Studies of African Society in Cape Town. He appreciated with alacrity the rationale and the mandate of CASAS, the centrality and importance of the use of African languages for African development and prosperity, that without the use of our languages, we were going nowhere. In August 2000, he joined CASAS in Cape Town as head of administration He served in this position for 4 years with enthusiasm and panache. Bankie applied himself with dedication and sustained energy to the work of the center and established an admired and respected reputation for promptitude and solicitousness. He excelled under pressure and was scarcely ruffled by the unpredictability and demanding challenges of the work. He found answers to tests which would easily confound a more pedestrian administrator. He was always ready to travel and did this with enjoyment. He excelled in self-discipline. He set himself in daily activities. His persistent and exacting work style, involving endless footwork, diligent record keeping, and correspondence, was notable. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that in our generation, I have never met anybody who had the same measure of administrative and office managerial skills as Mr. Bankie F. Bankie. He was an unrivaled administrator, extremely hardworking, meticulously organized, and exceptionally punctual in his discharge of duties. He ran an office almost like a military operation. Everything done on time and on cue. He would apply pressure when he felt needed in order to ensure that the delivery of services and the fulfillment of expectations are executed with precision and without fail. There were some who found his sense of devoted and single-minded application in the above respects sometimes wearisome. But nobody ever denied the fact that Bankie was extraordinarily efficient. He had also some of the quirky Anglo-Saxon attitudes, which was not surprising because he grew up in Britain, attended a private school, and had the mores of an English gentleman. His organizational ability was phenomenal. He organized conferences and meetings flawlessly. He would be flitting around in these meetings, making sure things were as they should be. The organizational strategy for each meeting will be penned in note form and then assiduously implemented. He did all of this in full confidence of fulfillment of all expectations. Another facility in which he outrivaled was his intuitive aptitude for making swift but reliable assessments about character and the politics of people, what the Dutch call mensenkennis. In a brief period of interaction, he would mentally scan and take the measure of a person and would be prepared in confidence and sound judgment to accurately pronounce his appraisal. He was quick to grasp political calculation and dispositional bearings, but was tolerant and strategically patient with people. Bankie's work with CASAS initially involved the setting up of an administrative filing system and managing the network of scholars. This he did diligently and with consummate skill. Indeed, the system he set up still lives after him and continues to be used till today by CASAS. He was never a person who dismissed responding to correspondence, and he would keep a tab on all the correspondence and traffic which passed in and out of CASAS. I secured his work permit with considerable effort, I had to seek the personal intervention of the Minister of Home Affairs, then Lindway Sisulu, to clinch the authorization, which was granted for an unrenewable 4-year stint. After 4 years, it was not possible to extend his visa in South Africa. The law would not allow him to perform tasks which the government regarded as within the competence of available South Africans. Bankie stayed in Cape Town during the crucial gestation period of the center. Tragically, during that period, Bankie and Rita Adzokeme, his second wife, lost their daughter, the eldest child, Amma, to sickle cell anemia. She was buried in Plumstead Cemetery in Cape Town. This loss was overwhelming for both Bankie and Rita, and as if tragedies visit in droves, within about a year, Rita and Bankie lost Bobani, their second child and son, to the same condition. This happened in Namibia. The psychological damage was irreparable for both Bankie and Rita. The repetitive affliction of extreme misfortune visited in its most unkind dispensation on Rita and Bankie would have pushed most people to the edge of sanity. And so it almost did for both of them. They survived. Bankie maintained a stoic demeanor, but strained underneath this mania, under the weight of unflagging adversity, which he met with unyielding psychological resistance and steely determination. From time to time, he would obliquely allude to the pain of the loss, but hold back any public display of frayed emotions. His cultivated sense of privacy and practiced circumspection featured prominently in his schedule of virtues. He was, by temperament, reserved and relatively taciturn. This outlook was undergirded by unfeigned simplicity. He, under most circumstances, maintained a restrained deportment of emotional detachment. This was not for lack of emotional cargo. It was also not a manifestation of regular psychological repression, masking turbulent inner wrangling. It was simply the self-discipline of a focused mind. Bankie eschewed hyperbole, despised clowning and oily sentimentalism, but was not averse to witticisms and the apt riposte. In instances of the latter, he would smile and possibly offer only very controlled and rationed laughter. However, he quietly disapproved of displays of meaningless laughter, or what he considered to be exhibitions of extravagant jollity. He was a man of strong views. Once he had made up his mind, one way or the other, about anything, he stuck to his conclusions and would change his mind only under exceptional circumstances. Bankie's Pan-Africanist drive was unwavering, relentless, and resolute. He was always feverishly and forever busy pursuing activities connected with Pan-Africanism on the continent and in the diaspora. The pursuit of the Pan-Africanist ideal was for him a supreme calling, which he remained wedded to throughout his adult life. As he got older, this conviction acquired extra intensity and devotion. He worked through a network of Pan-Africanist activists with whom he, on a continuous basis, shared materials through the internet. He was an organizer par excellence. Bankie was active in the global African reparations movement, and he did visits across the globe on behalf of the movement. jurists involved in the activities of the organization. One can with certitude confirm that there was no preoccupation larger than the Pan-Africanist ideals, which he held in unflinching regard. His Pan-Africanism was free from fanaticism and cant. He regarded it as a common sense position which must be pursued to its logical conclusion by Africans because of its emancipatory objectives and strategic benefits. Bankie learned to locate Pan-Africanism defined by historical and cultural considerations instead of purely geographical criteria. He with time came to appreciate the conceptual limitations of continentalism and was patient with ideological stragglers. He hardly held any conventional or outspoken deference to putative orthodoxies on these ideals and was less disquieted by hard or firm positions than holistic and the unified flow of all tendencies in the movement, even if by doing so, some contradictions had to be carried along. In other words, he was more concerned about the generalized and collective vibrancy of a movement than the selective cultivation of vital strands and prospective avant-gardist ideas. This inclination in practice implied an ability to embrace Pan-Africanism as a broad church than affiliation to any of the increasingly variegated tendencies competing to claim faithful acolytes and canonical authority. Bankie was instrumental in the organization of the 8th Pan-African Congress in January 2014 at the University of Witwatersrand, Johannesburg. Together with General Ishola Williams, they pressed the late Professor Danny Nabudere and myself to ensure its manifestation. He saw as his task, articulated to me, the work of networking Pan-Africanists globally and pursued this object with untrammeled zeal and methodological consistency. Bankie was a tireless worker. On the last occasions I saw him, he was rapidly aging, but demonstrably energetic. I remember in the same hotel I am now, in the Safari Court, that when he came to collect me and drop me, and he was going, I noticed that, especially this part of his body, his neck, had become very lean and aged, you know, when as we get older, your neck begins to waste a bit. And so I stood in the window just to confirm to myself what was happening. But he walked very briskly. Very briskly. He was stooping more than usual. But he was very brisk in his gait. So I assumed that I was wrong. Because I had asked him also, how are you? He says, oh, no, I'm all right, I'm all right. But I suspect he knew he was ill. It was later reported to me by one of the last of our friends, Emeritus Prime Minister Hassan Gula, who saw him on the 19th of June, that he was visibly unwell and had advised him to consult a medical doctor and take some rest. In death, he was discovered depleted in flesh and reduced to bare bones, having passed away for weeks without knowledge of other people. but his memory lies graciously embalmed in the Pan-Africanist considerations of our times. I thank you for your attention.